Good morning, church. When I was preparing yesterday's vlog, I came across this verse that I wanted to share with you today because it just stuck with me all night, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit. It's Colossians 4, verse 4. Pray that I might be able to make it as clear as I ought to when I preach. Pray that I might be able to make it as clear as I ought to when I preach. You know, I thought about this a lot last night because one of the great problems that many of us have is the ability to clearly and simply communicate with people. And we're talking about Jesus over the course of his ministry using parables. Telling people stories, speaking plain truths of divine occurrences. Bringing people to a point of something that they could understand. Now, they might not have completely understood what he was saying at the time and needed to study it further, but that's okay. They still came to listen because, you see, Jesus tempted people to hear him, and he did this by teaching with simplicity and clarity. He was as clear as a bell. And this was much to the chagrin of the Pharisees. The Pharisees were furious with him because they were starting to see people just joining this cult, this guy Jesus. Who does he think he is? He's not a rabbi. He's not an ecumenical, a theological scholar like us. No, he's not that kind of a priest. He's some carpenter's son out there talking to people. Where does he get off? So the Pharisees, as it says in the Gospel of John 7, the Pharisees heard the crowd murmuring these things about him, and the chief priests and Pharisees sent officers to arrest him. They were jealous of him, friends. They had to get him out of the way. But imagine how upset they were when the officers then came to the chief priests and Pharisees, who said to them, "Why did you not bring him?" The officers answered, "No one ever spoke like this man." Oh my goodness. Oh my. It was very difficult not to listen to the words that Christ spoke. They failed in their mission. They failed in their mission simply out of Christ speaking clearly and simply. Jesus would have offered no physical resistance to them. But no one ever spoke like him, so they could not arrest him. They were so impressed with the teachings of Jesus that they could not bring themselves to arrest this peaceful man. Now, the temple guards were not alone in their marveling at the teachings of Jesus. The Gospels tell us throughout the stories, they tell us that people came in great numbers just to hear Jesus speak. The people in his hometown of Nazareth marveled at the gracious words that were coming out of his mouth. You can look that up in Luke 4:22. Several times Jesus spoke from a boat to large crowds assembled on the seashore of the Galilee. It tells us that in Mark 3, Mark 4, and Luke 5. On one specific occasion, a large crowd stayed with him for several days, even going without food, Mark 8. And of course, you can certainly remember the Sermon on the Mount. For Jesus to say these things that flew in the face of what people understood to be life at that time. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the peacemakers. What was it exactly that made Jesus such an outstanding teacher? Well, first we have to know that Jesus knew his audience. He knew what he had to say in order to tempt them to hear him. Yes, tempt them to hear him. Even today when a politician or anyone is speaking, people have to be tempted to hear him, or they just hit their remotes and change the channel. It's that way in the advertising. Advertising puts these ads out that people remember, like the Geico commercials, for instance. I love the one with Bigfoot where in the progressive commercial where the woman says to Bigfoot, he says, "Well, do you understand that, Bigfoot?" He says, "Bigfoot?" He says, "My name is Daryl." I love that. And here I am remembering that because it's speaking plainly to me. It's making me laugh. It's not speaking like Jesus did, but it's speaking to us nonetheless. Think of the commercials that you remember. Sometimes the commercial's so strong, you forget what they were advertising. You know, Jesus often used clear, short phrases, uttering sayings that were simple but deep in meaning. Even today, more than 2,000 years after they were first spoken by Jesus, many powerful sayings are still easily remembered by both Christians and non-Christians alike, believers and not yet believers. You know, judge not lest ye wish to be judged. You know, you can't serve two masters, God and money. You know, these types of sayings, such as render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. No, friends, speaking clearly, concisely, and simply is what we must all do if we are to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. The way to successfully evangelize the word of Christ, and I apologize for the dinging, it's my phone in the background, but the way to properly evangelize the words of Christ is to speak to people as they might understand and would be relevant to them. You know, Jesus spoke to farmers by talking about good soil, and he talked to fishermen about casting your nets. Jesus knew his audience. We must also know our audience. Friends, I'm not suggesting that you go stand on a street corner and get up on a soapbox and start preaching at the top of your lungs. But you will be put in situations that you will either have to be apologetic, an apologist, or you will have to and there's a word I probably shouldn't use because that's one of those theological words that scholars use. But you may be in a position of having to defend your faith. You never really have to defend it because your faith is your faith and no one can take it from you. And there are times you may have to be called on by someone who's trying to find Christ, to understand a little more, to teach them what you know. And I know it's so difficult at times to put these things into words, but trust me, friends, people must be tempted to hear. You must tempt people to hear you, and then provide for them the clarity and the simplicity that they need. You know, Paul said that he didn't come with eloquence or with wisdom, and he came trembling. That's how we are as Christians, because the wisdom belongs to God. So, my friends, remember that God loves you, and so do I. God bless you, and until tomorrow, stay safe, stay healthy, and goodbye.